my beautiful art friends. It's Kelly Folsom here. We are back for another Art Life Conversations podcast. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. And of course, be sure to subscribe if you find all of this valuable to you. Hit the bell if you're on YouTube, all the things, if you want to stay up to date with what I'm sharing here. Okay, this is, believe it or not, we're still continuing on under the topic of the real reason why you're not creating or painting and what to do about it. We are on, let's see, part seven now. Because sometimes it's a few of these things, sometimes it's just one. I'm kind of getting into really very nuanced layers of this now. And so I recommend if you're here and you're like, yeah, I'm not creating, why might that be? I recommend you go back to the beginning and kind of listen to them and just diagnose yourself, yeah, which one of these is really hitting home for me? And, listen to the solutions, of course, that I'm offering and presenting, the ideas that I'm offering. So this one, again, I usually do two different parts to kind of a similar idea on these. And so this one is covering comparison. Anybody ever done that? Comparison and basically fantasy or living out your creative urges through others, right? Through other artists. So let's start with comparison first. We've heard of this, is very mainstream now. I think everybody understands this concept of, falling prey to the comparison trap. And I think this is even more challenging these days because, because of social media and Pinterest, social media, YouTube. It's so easy for us to see what all of these other artists are creating, what they're making, but also, comparison trap happens as well in smaller environments. So I think it's kind of interesting how, as artists, we covered a couple of podcasts ago that, one of the reasons you might not be creating is because you don't have any other artists around you. You're not involved in any sort of like community or peer group of other artists or artist teachers or mentors. So I think it's kind of interesting that we need that. That's one of the ingredients that we need as an artist. But then sometimes when we're involved in that, this ugly, little gremlin called the comparison trap can, just grab us and bite us in the ass too. So I think part of it is like, again, it's natural for us to want to fit in, to want to be like other people. We all have also a desire as well to stand out. Again, it's like these polarities, I think, about being human. And when we need both, we do want to stand out and we want to fit in. We want to contribute something that is unique and valuable and special, and we want to have a sense of belonging with other people. And so when we get into those peer groups, those peer systems, whether that's just you're taking a class, you might sign up for a class. And I know the very first thing that I started doing was seeing how I stacked up in the class, right? So my very first drawing class, and I think some personalities are more prone to this than others. If you've ever taken like your Enneagram test, you may see like, oh, I've got this achiever thing, or I'm really prone to perfectionism. Like if you're a type 1, you're going to probably be much more prone to perfectionism. If you're a type 3 or type 2, a type 2 wants to fit in, a type 3 wants to stand out and get status and achieve. And those are two parts of my personality. And so things like that can be very helpful too, because they can help you understand yourself better, learning things like that about yourself. But I think for the most part, most of us, regardless of our specific personality types, are, can fall prey to this comparison trap. Some of us maybe have to keep an eye on it more than others. But I remember my first class, like I was like, okay, I'm here, I'm learning to draw. I'm so excited and I'm totally terrified and freaked out. But also like after I was there, drawing for a while, then I was like, ooh, I kind of want to see what everybody else is doing and see how good or how not good everybody else was, right? And I was kind of hoping, secretly that there would be at least half of the class would be worse than I was, so that I could feel good about myself as an artist, right? And so I started doing that. And I think a lot of us do that. If we're going to be really honest about it, most of us are going to do that. We're going to see, okay, where do I measure up? Am I the best in the room? Am I the worst in the room? Am I somewhere in the middle? How do I measure up, and we compare ourselves to other people. The downside of that too is like, then you've got like this inferiority, superiority thing happening that you start dealing with mentally. And if you feel inferior, I think that that's actually the worst thing. Because when you compare your work to other people's work, if you start feeling like you're not good enough, you're never going to be good enough, why even bother? Because they are so great, and I'm just never going to, I don't think I'm ever going to get there. As soon as you go to that inferiority place, that's where the problem comes in. You start going down that path of like, why bother? You maybe are filled with self-doubt or low self-esteem or low confidence. And you just might not be able to handle how you measure up against other artists. And I know for me, my first year, I did this a lot in smaller classes, independent classes that I was taking at either the Gage Academy or, just different independent places where I was studying. And I would start to compare myself and try to see, am I good enough? Like I was looking for, I was more times than not, I was looking for proof that I wasn't good enough. And often I would find that. So, but those were like smaller classes, smaller groups. And, I think most of us were kind of around a similar range in skill set. And, we didn't really have a lot of people that were like top notch in those independent classes. A lot of the people were like hobby artists like myself who were just kind of trying to learn and trying to get started on this journey. A lot of us were beginners. Some of us maybe were more, a little further along in those classes. But I would say most of us were kind of closer in range in terms of skill set. Now, obviously, you say, oh, well, you want somebody better than you in the class because then you can learn from them. Well, yes, that is such a great idea. But, if you are so much in that inferiority complex and caught up, and that's a form of ego as well, whether it's superiority or inferiority, you just can't bring yourself to get to that place most of the time. You just like feel bad about yourself most of the time whenever you're in that place. So then whenever I got to art college, then I was around a bunch of, artists who at least a handful of artists in every classroom that I felt like were so far ahead of me and so much better than me. And oh boy, that gremlin of comparisonitis just like was always on my back, kind of attacking me. I'm making it sound like something was happening to me. I was doing it to myself. That's what we all do. But I really struggled with that first year. And there was one artist in particular that I envied, her skill set so much. I envied what she could do because really she was doing what in my fantasy, what I thought I wanted to do. Her work was very hyper realistic. She was very good at drawing the figure and portraits. And I kind of had this idea early on that I was going to be a portrait artist or a figurative artist, because mostly as a kid, all I'd ever drawn was like portraits. So part of it was like I had this idea of what I thought that I wanted to do. And when it came down to it, first of all, I didn't really enjoy painting and drawing those subjects. And I certainly didn't enjoy the process of doing the more hyper realism kind of look. It just wasn't the artist that I was. But I got so caught up in this comparison mode with this artist and feeling so envious and jealous and just like, really green with envy, over that. And it wasn't until I finally had to come to terms with, with that. And only whenever I could come to terms with it, of like, I'm going to be the artist I'm going to be, and there's really only so much control I have over that. I was born to be the artist that I am. And so I finally got to this place where I could appreciate my own work, appreciate where I was and what I could do. And I could stop getting caught in that comparison mode with these other artists. But that will definitely like kill your creativity so fast. If you're just always comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing and getting into that inferior mindset, yeah, you're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel like creating. So with all of these things we're talking about, you've got to see how can you come to a place of feeling good about yourself, feeling good about your art and accepting where you are now, and also kind of letting go and surrendering and trusting that, this desire in your soul to be an artist was put there for a reason. And it's not to be like, Michelangelo or Sargent, it's not to be a repeat or to compete with these other artists, but it's really for you as an artist to bring who you are, your unique full self to the table as an artist. That's really all any of us can do. And that's the best thing that we can do. And again, it does go back to that self-acceptance and that self-love, and also trusting that, you were made this way for a reason, like like the Lady Gaga song, I was born this way. You were made this way for a reason. You have the style of painting that you naturally paint in for a reason. You like the colors you like for a reason. All of this is like, you like the subject matter you like for a reason. You enjoy painting that, even with all of the struggles it comes with, for a reason. So, embrace that, lean into that. And I would say if you are somebody who is getting caught up daily, weekly in comparisonitis, put yourself on a comparison diet, fast. Put yourself on a comparison fast. No more, it might be no more social media. Take a week off social media. Whatever you got to do, just be with yourself, be with your own art, and find everything that you love about your art, what you create, and how you as the artist create it. What can you find to appreciate about yourself so that you're not looking at somebody else and getting in lack over that, right? Because we're all going to be different and we're all going to bring something different to the table, and it takes all of us. All right. So the next piece of this is, I think this is also to do with comparisonitis. I'm interested to hear what all of you think about this. Let me know your thoughts on this topic in the comments below. But this is like kind of like living vicariously through other people's art. And I feel like it has to do with comparison as well. We all, as artists, I think most of us artists appreciate art. We appreciate other people's art. We love it, you know. We respond to it. It feeds our soul in another way, in a different way than us as the creator who's making it. And I feel like sometimes we can get so enamored with other art, whether that's historical art or whether that's a contemporary artist that you studied with. If you're one of my Art Life School members, it might even be me, you know? So, but I think there's nothing wrong with that per se. And I feel like there is a balance there as well that you just want to keep an awareness around and an eye on. Like if you are sitting, studying somebody else's art far more than you are making your own, you're off track, right? I've studied with some pretty amazing artists in my time, and I still love and appreciate their work. And, if I ever found myself like just watching them paint all the time or just looking at their paintings all the time, and not doing anything for my own art, I would know you're way off track, honey. You have just, gotten sucked into like living vicariously through this other artist to fill the void of creating. So consuming, I think it just can never fill that void of creating. And it's why you still feel so empty inside as an artist. The only thing that can fill that void as an artist is to create. So if you're not creating but you're consuming, you're watching other people paint, you're listening to demonstrations, lectures, you're looking at, YouTube videos of all the Rembrandt paintings, or whoever the artists are that you admire and love. Like if you're filling the majority of your time with those kind of activities, you are going to feel this emptiness, this void inside because you're not balancing that with enough creative time. Okay. So I'm curious to hear what all of you think about it. And again, none of these things are bad or wrong, right? Like, and a lot of these things, when done in a balanced, healthy way, like are a good thing. But we just have to keep an eye on that balance. And I think always the sign is, are you creating? Are you painting? Are you drawing? Are you sculpting? Are you making your art? And if you're not, something is out of balance there. And, until you correct that, until you get back into alignment, back into balance creatively, you're going to feel this like void, this emptiness in your creative soul. And I don't really know how else to explain that. Let me know if you guys know what I'm talking about. I think probably every artist will know what I'm talking about. And there's the only thing that fills that up is us doing our own art, us creating. But sometimes we replace it with doing things like scrolling on Instagram or watching, it's another tutorial. Wow, look at how great that painting came together. Woo, so we kind of start numbing out to try to fill that void. Sometimes we numb out with substances, or with TV or with other things, to kind of try to distract us from that void, that creative emptiness that we're filling, right? So You've got to kind of get back to your internal North Star compass creatively, and just start making stuff, start creating things. Okay, my friends, I hope that this has been helpful to you. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. Please leave me comments below. What did you think about this? What's been your experience with things like this? What do you feel holds you back from your creative process, right? And if you have any other ideas or thoughts or topics for me, you can send those to info at artlifewithkelly, KELLI.com. If you're interested in working with me and studying with me on, any kind of level, just go to artlifewithkelly.com and you'll find pretty much everything I've ever created for artists out there on that website. Okay, again, I want the best for you, my friends, and please know that you're not alone. We need you. We need your art. So stay strong, keep creating, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.